So now let's move on to the main event. Our replay of Batman Arkham Knight.
Oh,
I am going to let Lee break this one down. Batman Arkham Knight. Talk to me about it. What's the setup for this? The final Batman game in the Rocksteady trilogy.
It's another Arkham game with shoehorn Batmobile sections.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. Yeah. That. All right. That's our replay of
thanks, everybody.
Batman Arkham Knight.
It seems like obviously it's kind of it's expanded from City,
which was kind of open world. Arkham City was I would call that open world, but it was just a very small, condensed open world.
It's open world when it lets it be open world.
Well, that's kind of like how this game is too, but
yeah. So it kind of where it went from the more Metroidvania of the first one to the second one, where they opened it up to some extent because it's in a weird escape from New York type Gotham, and they've expanded that a little bit. And their new innovation was to kind of bring in the Batmobile stuff, which was I remember the reason why I brought this up because I remember that being divisive.
Yeah, I
we
remember
kind
that.
of put suggestions in to kind of what we're going to do as a replay. What I originally was going to suggest in Origins, because that's one that everybody overlooked. But I figured we all had this one, and this is one I know has been quite divisive, and I think it's probably still divisive.
Yeah.
Because it can seem like these Batmobile sections, where it's a game that generally gave you freedom within the confines of where they block you off of the city to do whatever you really want. You can do your missions any way you really want. It's kind of really kind of funnels you down a path. It gives you the illusion of being kind of go out and do your thing in Gotham. It really doesn't. It kind of drip feeds you the missions a little bit too much in my opinion.
There's really not much to do outside of the missions.
It takes a while for the different things to unlock.
Yeah.
Probably too long. I don't think, because I think you guys kind of dropped off it quite quickly.
Yeah, I did. I did anyway.
Yeah. Now I got a lot.
Beat it.
Yeah, I guess Derek had beat it back in the day.
Yeah.
Well, Derek can kind of attest to this. It kind of takes quite a while before it starts to open up different styles of mission. Like kind of your Killer Moth missions and your fire missions, and this takes quite a while for them, and then they kind of double them out over time, and it's like you probably should have spread those out a bit more evenly, because I think it would be probably quite a dry first 5 or 6 hours. Although, to give the game credit, I did nearly choke on my own tongue at one section. There's a jump scare in this game, and I nearly died. I wasn't expecting it, so I'll give it credit for that.
Yeah.
You know about I'm talking about, Derek?
Which part?
The thing on the rooftop. The bat on the rooftop.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus Christ, I nearly died. I nearly died.
I would have loved to watch your reaction for that.
And that's another thing, much like Ultimate Alliance, I think, where this can seem like quite a long, drawn-out, kind of very samey thing, for somebody that's kind of, I mean, yeah, you know your Jokers and you know your this and the other, but kind of all the Easter eggy characters and stuff like that, and the deep cut characters, probably not going to interest people enough to continue on what I think is a 20-25 hour game. It's quite a long game to go by on kind of, hey guys, this is its character, and that's really it, because it doesn't really advance much. How do you guys feel about the Batmobile section?
So the Batmobile, I think, is a pretty cool idea. It just, the way that they executed on a lot of it left a lot to be desired. I think at the beginning, certainly it's way overused, and it feels like they're deliberately designing levels around it in a way that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No.
And I like the ability to the transform into the tank kind of thing. I think it looks cool, and it controls, at least the tank part of it controls really well. But I always felt like I described it in the group as feeling like I was on an Olympic luge when I was driving through the city. Because none of these streets are big enough for this Batmobile going like 90 miles an hour down them, and the game kind of knows it and just bounces you off of everything. Like, you're bouncing off of buildings, you're not causing any damage to them, you're just bouncing off of buildings, you're taking corners and you're bouncing off corners and stuff like that. And yeah, so that, I mean, it looks cool, like you get like the sense of speed from it, but it just there's no challenge to it. There was no there didn't end up really even being, in my opinion, a point to it, because it was really just you driving from the mission start to the next point of the mission where you trigger the next cutscene and the next part of the mission. And while the combat, like transforming into the tank and kind of getting like you can like strafe and move around and a little bit more nimble, but not going nearly as fast as when you're the normal Batmobile, is cool. But at least at the beginning, they don't really throw a lot of difficult enemies at you. It's a lot of the same combat over and over again with these same enemies, the little missile drone things.
And they're really easy to read because you get that line pointed at you.
Yeah, you know exactly where they're gonna shoot. And
like, I think if they would have taken that away, it would have like changed up that part of it significantly.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Change it. Like, maybe had the line there for less amount of time, Like, I mean, the line is literally there for like 5 seconds. Like, yeah, I'm gonna move out of the way. And it even changes color if it indicates whether or not you're in the actual, you're gonna get hit by it or not. Because there are parts where you get totally surrounded by these things, and it would be a pain in the ass if you didn't know like which one was actually aiming at you and which one was going to shoot next and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just like, it's very flashy and it looks really cool, and like when they blow up and the effects and stuff like that. And there is something interesting and engaging about that combat, the Batmobile combat, and the way it feels, but they don't, just like the driving around part of it, don't really execute on like keeping it interesting more than just like for the first few encounters. At least that was my takeaway. And there's too much like, get out of the Batmobile, activate this thing, get in the Batmobile, shoot the hook, pull the thing down, get out of the Batmobile, do this thing, oh, gotta get back in the Batmobile, now remote control the Batmobile. And
the antenna part.
Yeah, the antenna part, and then immediately after that, the Ace Chemical Factory was all that. And I wasn't sure whether or not at that point I was still being tutorialized, mostly because the tutorialization in this game is very strange. It kind of throws you into the game without too much of an intro. I feel like this game came out at a time when a lot of people were being critical about, like, every Assassin's Creed game that comes out has this super long tutorial intro, and I don't need that. I'm a gamer. I know how to play games. But this game kind of like took that and decided that, well, these people have probably played all of the previous Arkham games, so we're not going to tutorialize any of the stuff from those previous games. We're just going to kind of put you in and only show you the new stuff. And that was probably fine back then when this game came out, but 4 years later, I haven't played an Arkham game in, well, since Arkham Knight. So there was a lot of stuff that I wasn't familiar with, and it just kind of throws you into it in those terms. And then kind of over tutorializes you with all of the other stuff, with like the Batmobile and the new abilities you get. Like, is that fear mechanic new for Arkham Knight, or was that in the previous games?
I think that was new for this.
Yeah,
or at least
that would make sense, because they tutorialize it a lot, and it seems to be like a significant part of how you're supposed to engage with the enemy. So it felt like that that was a new thing that they added, as opposed to kind of doing a refresher on the other stuff, because you start this game with a whole bunch of gadgets and stuff like that, stuff that you'd previously accumulated over time in the other games, and you just kind of start out with it here. And yeah, that was like my initial impression going back into this game, is like it kind of throws you in, but then it kind of does these little tutorial breaks that are kind of more frustrating than anything, than really informative. Because like it doesn't really explain like where you can sneak, like going into the floor vent shafts and climbing up them and doing your hanging takedowns and stuff like that. It doesn't really explain any of that stuff. That came back to me because I kind of remembered it from the previous games, how it worked way back when I played them, but like I can't imagine how long it would take to figure some of that out, and say like another 5 years or something like that departed from playing these games. And in a lot of ways it's just because these kind of games have kind of advanced a lot since this one.
Yeah.
Like I mean, the last game that came out with this trademark Batman combat was probably Shadow of War, and I didn't play that.
Spider-Man.
The more I play, going back to this and comparing it to Spider-Man, I don't think Spider-Man is really. There are similarities, but it's not. It's different enough. It's not as fast. You don't have as many enemies piling on you at the same time. The few encounters that I had at the beginning of this game were like you were getting swarmed, and you were literally just pressing the button and like flying across the entire level in order to beat somebody down. And Spider-Man had a lot more just different options to choose from when you were doing the combat. So it's similar, but it's not quite as not quite as, at least in my opinion, not quite as button mashy as this is.
What more reminded me more of this than the others did, because this one implements the fact that you can use the environment and things in the environment which you couldn't use in previous games. That's what kind of reminds me, like where you could, for instance, in the Spider-Man thing, take somebody's shield and hit somebody else with it and stuff like that. They implement this into it a lot. You don't use it much because it doesn't really tell you very much that you can do it. But yeah, you can just pick anything up, and so there is that element that does remind me more than the other games did. There's no argument that you could say.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably one of the bigger differences between this combat and the Spider-Man combat is the Spider-Man combat is a little bit more clear on when you can do things other than just punch dudes. Or counter. Yeah, like you said, it doesn't really. The Batman combat doesn't really put a lot of focus on those kinds of extra moves, like Spider-Man did. Like that was like you had to use some of those special abilities in order to take some of those enemies down in Spider-Man.
This leads more into the rhythm game sort of thing, I think.
Yeah.
Spider-Man does, I guess.
Yeah. It ends up being in like you're kind of you're mashing the button, and then every once in a while you're hitting Y to do the counter.
It's a bit like juggling, but you're the ball. Weird way.
Yeah. It's or like pinball, but you're the ball.
It is a little bit more heightened than the other Arkham games. He does fly across the river a little bit more unrealistically than you used to.
Yeah, that first fight, when I first got into it, I think I messaged in the chat, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You're like it looks like you're skating across the world to get not even like I don't think I ever really grasped the quote unquote auto aim that is in this game, because it kind of does automatically lock on to enemies, and I never understood why sometimes he would go after this enemy that was completely across the screen when there were like 3 guys right next to him or something like that. And it's just more exacerbated here because your attack arenas are bigger because it's like an open world. So you got a guy 50 feet away, and he just like sails flying over there and punches him, and then sails right back to punch the guy that was right next to him.
Well, it's like what you were saying though with the driving thing. Everything is there. Those lines are extended lines where you can kind of hockey your way through it and look quite slick. The fighting's the same. It throws you over 50 yards into the corner and back again because it looks cool.
Right.
Whether it makes sense is kind of negligible, kind of debatable. Doesn't make much sense for him to do that, but that's probably its biggest strength and its failure, because it makes you feel like Batman, makes you feel like a badass, but it's not necessarily satisfying to do it because you're too busy going, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, you're too busy what the hell is going on?
Yeah. I mean, I think they come up with some cockamamie kind of reason why he does that. I think his suit's augmented. That's why he does that that stupid punch where he sits there and rails into the guy like I don't know what it is. Yeah. It's like the dog from Tom and Jerry. Got with a and so I think there's some reason why they do it, but it doesn't make as much sense as like when you see Spider-Man do it, because obviously he's agile and is supposed to be flying around.
Yeah, he's got superpowers actually.
And he's a good old 220 pound Batman. It doesn't make much sense to watch him fly across like a frisbee.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything's a bit bigger. It's a bit more blockbustery. This. It's a bit bigger and kind of.
Yeah, it feels like it's firmly in the era of everything needed to be open world, but everything didn't really need to be open world. Like for marketing, you needed to say that you were open world, but in reality, did the game and the systems really lend to that? Because I don't think I really do like that first Arkham Asylum game, because it was this small intimate level that you kind of slowly progressed through and then went back and accessed like a Metroidvania, and Arkham City was kind of like this good half step between the two. Like they were still,
Yeah.
it was small enough that you could remember distinct areas of it and remember to go back and do things once you've found a new gadget or something like that. But it was also a little bit bigger and allowed them to kind of stretch their legs a little bit in terms of, you know, like some of the gameplay and moving around as Batman, like using the zip line and gliding and stuff like that. But then when you get to this bigger open world, it kind of lost some of its like the personal nature of it. Like they right away cop out and find a way to get all of the civilians out of the city. And then all that's on the street are thugs. And, you know, it just does, like, the little moments where you have something going on, like, to create a quote-unquote living city don't really amount to too much. Whereas I think it felt even better in Arkham City. Because it was, like, this city that was turned into a prison kind of thing. And there's already, like, the citizens were the criminals, and they were living there, but they were also causing trouble. So I actually think I kind of like the story.
See, I hated the story.
Really? I like, so let me I guess rephrase that. I don't like I think that the setup to get everybody out of the city was dumb. But I like the idea of Joker being like this
Yes. Yeah.
The demon on Batman's shoulder kind of thing, the monkey on his back and always following him around. I do like that, and I almost wish there was. Does that ever get explored at all in like the comics or anything that you're aware of?
Well, it's always kind of been there. Kind of, they are kind of not one without the other. So
well, yeah, I understand that, but I mean specifically like Batman hallucinating him and
probably.
Okay.
Been 8 years.
I think yeah, I think that would make a cool like you know, like the a movie or something like that. Like if they were going to make another Batman movie or something, I think that would be a neat way to approach like having the Joker, but not actually having him be the villain. You know, like he always is, like the big, like the supreme big bad. And they did some really cool things with that, like that first time you go back to the clock tower and like you turn around and the whole level changes behind you. That there was some really cool effects there. I just don't know whether or not they keep capitalizing on that, or if they kind of just use that up front and then kind of fade away from it.
I think he kind of dips more into the kind of nature type thing of it as
What's
time
that?
goes on, because obviously he dips more. They do dip more into the kind of surreal, kind of losing his mindy sort of thing of that as the game goes on. Yeah, that is the strongest part of it. Although I said I didn't like the story, that is because at first I thought it's cheap. You're doing Joker again. You're bringing him back again.
Yeah.
And the way they're using him is kind of in a weird way kind of genius.
Yeah, I thought that was like, even back then when I first played it, I thought that was like a really cool twist on it.
Yeah.
And it's a good twist too, like when they introduce him. Of course, what you're doing at when they introduce him is not really cool at all. But that sequence where you're pulling those tubes out of that thing and moving them over. Oh my fucking god, what a pain in the ass.
Yeah, no, get it. No. Oh, that was shit.
Oh my, I somehow had forgotten about that from the first time I played it. and boy, did that come rushing back. I guess maybe it was fitting that that was the moment where Batman's past came back and haunted him too.
Life imitating art.
Yeah, they're trying to drive you just as mad as Batman is.
But the actual plot isn't very good. If you know anything about Batman, within 2 seconds of seeing who the bad guy is and the way he talks, you're like, I know who that is.
Yeah.
And they have the gall to think it's going to be a mystery who it is. I said to Derek in the chat, I know this is. Tell me it is, because you played it. It's like, yep. It's like I told it. Not very good. Not very good at all.
Yeah, I obviously didn't play long enough to unlock it to figure that out, and I also don't have enough like memory of the old games and enough info on Batman lore to even really make a guess. Although you can tell that he has some sort of unique voice, so I could probably just listen to the voices in order to figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about this, so you want to just talk about who it is? I don't care if it's spoiled for me.
Yeah,
First, it's the second Robin. Yeah, it's the second Robin. It's Jason Todd. Yeah, the one that they think dies but doesn't die in the third game or second game. Yeah, Jason Todd.
Arkham City.
I know your equipment. I know how to get into your Batman cave. I know you this. It's well.
Yeah, they give it away a lot for how much they tried to hide it.
Yeah. There's only 3 people that's been here. That's like Alfred and the other Batman and the other Robin. So it's like, thanks.
I didn't even remember Robin being in the other game. So.
I think didn't they explain it like that Joker like beat him to death to where you thought he was dead, so then you're going after Joker, you come back and his body's not there.
Yeah.
Like it was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very obvious, and the fact they carry it out so long is quite cheap.
That was the most annoying part. Like after you hear the first couple lines and like the first couple interactions, you're like, yeah, I know who this is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's just
I know how to get in and out of your systems, and I know. Yeah, it's like, no, come on, stop dragging it out. Just take your mask off.
Yeah, I don't know. For somebody who seems to know all about Batman's tools and gadgets and stuff, those fucking tanks that he brings in are real pieces of shit and have absolutely no business dealing with the Batmobile.
This is another thing. Like people are like, because the Batmobile plus the new thing, and Jason Todd's supposed to be close to him. Nobody knows how the new Batmobile works, apart from Riddler, who makes challenges specifically for your Batmobile.
For the Batmobile.
Yeah.
So it is clued in.
Hey, maybe the Riddler. Maybe this is a new Batmobile design, and the Riddler is just really like really quick to update his challenges.
Yeah, possibly. He's burning in the midnight.
I mean, he was able to seemingly deconstruct all of Gotham City within a few hours in order to put all of those trophies everywhere around the city once the citizens were removed from the city.
Yeah. Let's find out who's selling him the green spray paint, and then you'll be all right.
Yeah.
What are you planning on?
I played a little bit on Xbox One X because it's on Game Pass, so I figured I'll just check that out. I only played like about an hour, and then I went back to the PC version, which is the version I originally owned back when it came out. And
Notorious.
Yeah, the notorious PC version of this game, almost as notorious as the Batmobile. Yeah, so when this game came out, this was like a pretty big like disaster on PC. It was obviously a port. It was a port done not by Rocksteady, but an outsourced port. and it just ran like garbage on just about everything. There wasn't a really solid configuration of, you know, processor and graphics card at the time that could really do what it needed to do, and it was all because of poor optimization. It wasn't really like this game like was pushing, you know, the limits of PC gaming or anything like that. It just was a bad port job. And it took them a very, very long time to get it straightened out. And I remember at the time, like, you know, checking to see every little patch they put out. Is this the one that did it? Like, if I turn this off, it makes it okay for a little while, but it's not okay here. And I remember I got the game. I think I got it packed in with a new graphics card purchase too. So it was like they were like Nvidia was selling it along with graphics cards. This game that didn't play on any computer configuration, never mind the cards that they're packing it in with. And on top of that, there was even like, they still do this every once in a while, but it's not quite as frequent. But there was like special Nvidia like physics things that you could turn on. Like you could turn on like better like particle effects and smoke, and I think there was like better tech for the way his cape looked or something like that. And like those were some of the like worst things that you could turn on that would affect the performance. So those were like the first things that you were supposed to turn off if you were having trouble with the game. But today, you know, 4 years later, and like, you know, probably twice as fast processors and graphics cards and everything's, and, you know, updates and everything like that. It runs really well on PC.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no problem maintaining 60 frames per second with all like full graphic settings. I was playing it with everything turned up to maximum, and yeah, it looks good too. There's like it looks good and it doesn't look good. So there's like,
yeah, I was going to say that, yeah.
Especially when I played it on the Xbox, there's a lot of jaggy like anti-aliasing issues.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah.
That you can fix on PC because you can turn all those things on. But there's like everything, especially Batman's suit, seems like it's kind of washed out. Like it doesn't look black. It looks like it's like almost like washed out, like not gray, but like almost like his suit's always dusty or something like that.
Supposed to be like a matte color,
yeah,
shiny kind of Michael Keaton Batman color, I think. It makes it look grey sometimes.
Yeah, it does. It makes it look grey in the game anyway. And like I could tell if it was like a coloring, but it just seemed like it was almost like a stylistic choice that they chose, as opposed to like this is actually washed out or this is actually gray. But some of the cool things, like they do have really like good rain effects on his suit, because it's raining almost all the time in this game. And like the beads of rain like coming down on his cowl and stuff like that looks really good when it gets close up. And I think like some of the particle effects when you're blowing up those drone tanks look really good. And yeah, I think overall it's a pretty decent looking game, if nothing like really like mind blowing in terms of that. But it's also always dark, so you know, they get away with a lot by just having like bright lights juxtaposed against shadows that kind of look cool from a distance and stuff like that.
It gets really cool when you get more towards like the red light district sort of parts of it. You've got the neon kicking off and stuff like that, and you really get a bit of colour
Yeah.
Because it is quite grey and brown, and when you start getting like the reds and the pinks then it really kind of pops a lot. But
yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it does seem quite like it stands up today, but also it's very much a product of 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. And I think they get, like I said, I think they get away with some of it because it's so dark, so you're not really seeing up close with like seeing if it's like like real low textures or something like that. And the jagginess on the Xbox was a little disappointing, which I'm assuming is probably the same situation on the PS4. Just like anti-aliasing.
I've had both the S and the X, and it doesn't smooth any out at all, really.
Yeah, I don't think there was any updates for the X for this particular game.
No.
Or the PlayStation 4 Pro.
No. I think it's probably, I don't want to say the worst because it's still a good game. I think it's a good game anyway. But I think it's probably the least of the 4.
I haven't played Origins, so I can't say about that, but it's definitely my least favorite of the Rocksteady 3.
Yeah. Yeah. They might be bringing it back, so we'll see if the next one kind of tightens everything back up again.
Yeah, I heard
kind of like if they do it,
the Origins team is making a new one, maybe.
I didn't mind Origins. I think it's quite good. It gets a lot of. I think it's one of those things where people got quite.
Was that included? Was that included in the that HD pack they put out?
No, they don't. They don't include it.
No, they don't. Okay.
No, it's still running off of the 360 version. So.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
It's pretty good. It is pretty good. But it's one of those things. Change developers and people lose their minds.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's different in some ways too. So, a new developer is gonna have some sort of different flavor on it. I think what's really weird, not weird, but interesting about this is that Arkham Knight. When I was surprised when I realized that it came out 4 years ago. It feels like sooner than that, and literally nothing official for Rocksteady since then. Like not even like, hey, we're working on this. Like we don't even know, like officially. There's speculation and rumors and stuff like that, but like at this point, like it's not even announced, right? Like whatever their next game is. So that means if it was announced tomorrow, that means this game has been in development for 4 years, plus however long it's going to be before it actually comes out.
Well, from what I understand, they was working on another game, a Suicide Squad game, I believe. And I'd imagine since the film that was kind of it was gonna ride off the back of, was incredibly badly received.
Yeah, that's not exactly a big property you want a big Rocksteady game to come out revolving around.
Yeah, but it would have fit into what Warner Brothers do. It would have been more of a co-op-y sort of thing, because obviously it's a squad of people. Right. And they'd kind of like having that kind of more servicey type thing like they got going on with so anyway, they want to do something that open up a little bit more like online friendly. But yeah, from what I understand, they can that, so they might go back to the well, I guess. Because I know Montreal are probably sniffing around that, but we'll see what Rocksteady are doing. That it should appear soon. Apparently, it's a DC property. So
yeah, I guess at this point, they haven't announced anything yet, so they're probably not going to until they announce it for either launch or launch window of next gen consoles.
Yeah,
it'll probably be like a like spring 2021 game, if not a launch game.
Yeah.
Because why not, right?
Maybe, yeah, why not?
I mean,
It'd
they're
be cool
not
for them
like
to do like a Justice League sort of game. So you can traverse the sort of worlds they build with different powers, flight and stuff like that. And, yeah.
I like to see him do something completely different too, like step away from the comic thing and
good luck with that.
Like
Warner Brothers.
Well, yeah, I know they're not going to, but
no.
Like we got Horizon Zero Dawn, right, from a company that had been doing pretty much exclusively Killzone games their entire life.
Yeah.
And then, they were allowed to do something original, and it ended up being pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's what I would like to see from Rocksteady, is something like, obviously, probably, third-person character action game, but like maybe their own world, their own spin on it, whatever.
They're a talented studio, and it's a shame they kind of get stuck on that kind of franchise kind of development wheel.
Yeah. All right. Think that's gonna wrap up Batman. Unless anybody else has anything else they want to add real quick.
No, I think we pretty much covered it. Just kind of wasn't like returning to it. I didn't enjoy it as much as when I played it the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Like starting to do some things, it was just like, Batman again.
Yeah. I guess that was kind of my thing too. Was like it apparently 4 years isn't enough for me to be refreshed on Batman. to feel like I'm running on empty on Batman. I don't know. I don't know when that will be, but I'm kind of interested. I kind of want to just go back on my own and check out Arkham Asylum, and just see, because that was a really long time ago, and I only played that game at launch, and then never touched it again. So I'm interested to see how I feel about that game, going back to it.
I was kind of I was probably more keen on it than you guys, but I was kind of like, again, myself. And is it kind of character fatigue? But I've recently been playing the Telltale Batman games, and I think it's just literally formula fatigue. They don't keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, Batman was, they did a lot with Batman for a long time. It was like Batman, and it's just like I'm ready for the new take on Batman, I guess is what.
Yeah.
Like get somebody new to approach it.
Go the more detective route.
Yeah, whatever the route is, something a little bit different. Thank you for joining us in this very special episode of Voxel Viewpoint. If you'd like to hear or see more, please consider subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app, subscribing to us on YouTube, or visiting voxelvoice.com, where all of our great content comes together in one place. Also check out the Voxel Voice Facebook group, where you can join in on the discussion with a great, like-minded community.